The next topic is a tough one, a crucially important one that we should not shy away from. The epidemic of homelessness in this country. According to the Department of Housing and Urban Development, the number of people experiencing homelessness in the United States has reached an all-time high. Over 770,000 Americans found themselves on the streets last year alone. That is up 18% from the previous year. My next guest has covered the homeless crisis for decades. His new book tells the story of two people who spent years just trying to survive without a place to live. Kevin Fagan is a retired award-winning reporter at the San Francisco Chronicle. I am privileged to meet him. I'm such a fan of his work. He's the author of The Lost and the Found, a true story of homelessness, found family, and second chances. Kevin, this is such an important book because people talk or think about homelessness in the abstract, but you get really personal. And in it you write, quote, "The old maxim of measuring a society by how it treats its most vulnerable people is as true today as ever. By that measure, we fail." I want you to tell us about Rita and Tyson. These are the two people you profile in the book. How did society fail them?
Thanks for having me, Stephanie. Society failed them because we don't have enough housing, we don't have enough rehab, we don't have enough resources to help people on the streets. And, you know, the old maxim of falling through the cracks, that's what happened to Rita and Tyson and thousands of other people. That estimate of 700 and some odd thousand people on the streets is just a one-night count. A lot of people put that actual number at more than 3 million throughout a year. That's a lot of people. We shouldn't have this in America. And what happened with Rita was she fell into drug addiction and alcoholism while she was living a kind of bohemian, charmed life in Florida. She was living in the Florida Keys on boats, had 5 kids, and spiraled. And relationships failed. And one thing led to another. She wound up out here in San Francisco, and I found her on a place called Homeless Island, which was a traffic island where about a dozen people lived right there on the cement under tarps with shopping carts and cardboard, and all of them were addicted to something. Crack, heroin. This was in 2003. Fentanyl hadn't been a factor yet. So it was crack and heroin and meth and booze, anything you could. And it broke my heart to get to know them and to get to know Rita. And her boyfriend died while I was covering this island. At 6 months I spent on the streets with my good friend Brant Ward, photographer. And we spent a lot of time at the island. And Rita's boyfriend got flesh-eating disease and essentially rotted to death. And Brant and I went and found his body, told the islanders. Everyone freaked out. Rita was so lost. And then her family read my story back east in Florida, and that's what Rita looked like on the island. They came out and got her because they had kind of lost track of how desperate she had become and where she was. Got her, took her back to Florida, and she rehabbed beautifully. We became friends. I've known her for 20 odd years. She's just a wonderful, wonderful person. And she became herself again. Once she was able to get free of the drugs and get away from the environment that kept her down, she flourished. She became a health nutritionist and a massage therapist. Lovely gal. Lovely, lovely, lovely woman.
Is that why you wanted the reader to know the full Rita and understand her full story beyond her life on the streets? Because it's easy for us to look at us and them and see them as others with no connection to who we are. But you brought us into her life as a mother, as a partner.
Yeah, thank you. I tried really hard to do that. I've been a reporter for a lot of years and covered homelessness for decades. I watched it grow through the 80s and become the horror that it's become for the people who are on the street. And I wanted people to know how you become this person that you pass on the street, panhandling and sleeping in tents and sleeping on cardboard. A lot of folks pass homeless people by, and the chronically homeless ones are the ones on the street who are shooting up or sleeping on the sidewalk. Most homeless people, actually majority, are in shelters or somewhere somewhere less desperate. But those ones people look on as one-dimensional cardboard cutouts, and you wonder, how does someone become like this? Did they just make a bad choice? Can you just give them a sandwich and a bed and they'll pull themselves up? No, you have to recreate their lives and help them recreate their lives. And it's because we fail on the front end. We don't have enough housing, health care, living wage, all those things that create an underclass in America that doesn't really exist to the same extent in other westernized countries.
You experienced homelessness at a young age. I'm sure that has informed part of your reporting or your motivation, but how do you believe we've gotten here? Because the government pours huge amounts of money into solving for this. We've got countless programs, but for some reason we have not been able to solve this crisis, and it seems to only be getting worse. Why?
Yeah, we're trying to fix it on the back end. It's when I was young, I grew up mostly poor. I had educated parents. Dad was going to school most of my formative years. That's why we were poor and living on student salary. And then I got kicked out of the house when I was 16. Long story. We reconnected later and became best of friends. But when I was on my own at 16, I could clean houses, live in an unfinished garage, put myself through college. I could do that. The economy was different. I was able to pull myself up. It's harder to do that now. Going to school is immeasurably more expensive than it was then. Minimum wage sucks. It does not get the job done for most people. It did for me. I always thought, you work hard and you mean well and you put your shoulder into things and it'll work out. And it did for me, but it's harder to do that now. And that makes me very sad, because I've known hundreds, if not thousands, of people over my whole career who were in desperate straits and would love to pull themselves up. No one really wants to sleep on the streets. That's what I have come to know as a truth over all my decades of covering homelessness. No one wants to be face down in the dirt. It's just not a thing.
Well, Kevin, I am grateful for your decades of reporting, and especially grateful for this book. Thank you for joining me tonight.
Thank you, Stephanie.